countries, with more than 2,500 employees across the globe, and 25% of annual revenue spent on R&D. We build long-lasting relationships with our client community, and we're proud of our 100% record of successful client implementations. By sharing our investment in innovation, development and regulatory initiatives, we unlock more value for our community. We enable our clients to grow their business and increase efficiency and speed. Our clients have used our solutions to simplify their administrative burden, increasing revenue per relationship manager by up to 10%. Through automation, we have delivered STP rates for payments of up to 99.8% for our clients. And our flexible and modular architecture allows clients to expand rapidly into new markets. We offer a range of innovative solutions from front to back office. And we also support the back office with banking operations. Avaloq's open, highly scalable architecture is built on a unified data model, providing a single source of truth for all client and transaction data. With our multi-entity, single-instance approach and market-specific standard editions, clients can easily expand their business. Our products integrate seamlessly with our clients' own applications or third parties, and our customization layers give clients flexibility while maintaining many of the benefits of standardization. Everything we do supports our mission to orchestrate the financial ecosystem and democratize access to wealth management.
This is the big picture. Digital transformation is a complex journey. What we need is to connect business strategies and innovation. Transform the process to deliver fast. Collaborate with experts in building your vision from concept to launch. Deliver the best experiences, from ensuring reliability to embedding quality in your culture. Take your business to the cloud, to grow and scale on demand, enabling you to thrive. Unlock your full potential using data-driven decisions to form real-time strategies. Deliver faster and more efficiently using AI-powered solutions. Possibilities are endless. Let's navigate this complex journey together by allowing us to speed up your transformation.
Go. Hi there, I'm Jonathan De Luzuriaga. In today's highly competitive digital landscape, tech professionals are under pressure to rapidly develop and deploy innovative products. That's why Globe Business API Solutions help businesses like Spring Valley streamline processes and automate workflows for enhanced efficiency. They seamlessly integrate with existing systems, eliminating the need to build everything from scratch and allowing developers to focus on the core functionality of their products. Globe Business API Solutions empower your business to maintain a competitive edge and stay ahead of the industry trends para abot mo ang tuloy-tuloy na success. Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan De Luzuriaga. As workloads and demands change in today's fast-paced business landscape, scaling infrastructure and resources accordingly can be challenging. But with Globe Business Cloud Solutions, businesses like Spring Valley can easily host websites and build more apps in the cloud while only paying for the services they actually use. It also scales up alongside your business, allowing for seamless growth. Globe Business Cloud Solutions revolutionize the future of work, ensuring operational stability, agility, and resiliency. Para abot mo ang tuloy-tuloy na success.
One business takes on many challenges. But when they're beyond what one can solve, it'll take more. Each one pitching in to form seamlessly linked solutions. And with a partner to innovate and collaborate, we can create better experiences than we ever could alone, to become more valued than we'd ever be on our own. Because there's nothing greater than working as one to make an impact in people's lives. Redefine our greatness. Globe Business.
Welcome to Avaloq, the #1 provider of software and services for wealth managers and private banks. Founded in 1985, we now have over 4 trillion in Swiss francs assets managed on our systems, 17 offices, in 10 countries, with more than 2,500 employees across the globe, and 25% of annual revenue spent on R&D. We build long-lasting relationships with our client community. And we're proud of our 100% record of successful client implementations. By sharing our investment in innovation, development and regulatory initiatives, we unlock more value for our community. We enable our clients to grow their business and increase efficiency and speed. Our clients have used our solutions to simplify their administrative burden, increasing revenue per relationship manager by up to 10%. Through automation, we have delivered STP rates for payments of up to 99.8% for our clients. And our flexible and modular architecture allows clients to expand rapidly into new markets. We offer a range of innovative solutions from front to back office. And we also support the back office with banking operations. Avaloq's open, highly scalable architecture is built on a unified data model, providing a single source of truth for all client and transaction data. With our multi-entity, single-instance approach and market-specific standard editions, clients can easily expand their business. Our products integrate seamlessly with our clients' own applications or third parties, and our customization layers give clients flexibility while maintaining many of the benefits of standardization. Everything we do supports our mission to orchestrate the financial ecosystem and democratize access to wealth management.
And now, welcome to this session.
Our next topic explores the new data essentials, crucial for the development and implementation of generative AI technologies. Our speaker leads the data and AI practice at Accenture Advanced Technology Centers in the Philippines, focusing on data platforms, architecture, strategy, and generative AI. As the Accenture Gen AI Studio lead in Manila and Industry X practice leader, he brings over 25 years of experience in digital transformation, cloud, data, and AI across multiple industries. Let's show our appreciation to Mr. Mike Lau.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I think we're good. Okay. I hope you can hear me fine. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Mike Lau. I'm excited to talk to you this afternoon about readiness in the age of Gen AI. I don't know. I thank you first to PSIA. I love that intro video. Ang ganda ng music, parang napaka-hype, no? All right. So, okay. So good afternoon. Let me start. No. So, I think let me start with the presentation that where we are now, and I mean, we're all here. We're all from the technology space. So I kind of like to look at our history of technology in different, I would say, phases. No. So I don't know. Take a poll on who came here with the PC. Well, the PC 1980s is different than the PC now, though. The desktops are back in place with the gaming and everything. But back in the day, right, PCs were there, and then and then from the 80s, and then the boom of internet, right, all of the web, and then came mobile, the mobile apps, the mobile space, and everything. And of course, the last couple of probably last 10 years was really cloud, right? With cloud booming. And as you can see, based on, I would say, the trend, and you can look at the curve lines that we are seeing, technology has rapidly parang increased its adoption coming from cloud, and the curve is actually spiking up when you look at AI. That you look at it either way, is it spending of cloud or whatever of AI software? So it's increasingly steep. The curve is becoming steeper. So compared to before, technology adoption has always been there, and especially now that it's not just with our daily lives, it's also the enterprises, the businesses are adopting this. And why is Gen AI or AI relevant now? I think it's probably because of the fact that in the past several years, we have seen that the AI technologies have reached close to human-like capabilities, right? So if you look at from before, right, from the 1990s, AI has been here, technology has been here from before. But if you look at the way it's steep curve from the 2020s and all that, the learning curve, I mean the curve of reaching human-like potential has increased, and we've all seen this, right? With when we interact with the different Gen AI chatbots, the technologies like the LLMs, the Chat GPT or Geminis of the world. Even Adobe has launched something new with with the video stuff, right? So everything has the compute power, everything. The technology is really fascinating, right? And so in Accenture, we've done almost more than probably 1,000 Gen AI projects across the world, and what I've seen, or what we've also seen, is that while a lot of people, or I think it's kind of like when everyone now talks about Gen AI, they want, okay, what can I do with Gen AI, right? And it reminds me of the back in the day when mobile apps came, was the popular thing with digital, right? Everyone was saying, oh, I want an app for this. Everyone was talking about an app. So I think it's the same thing now. But what we're seeing, and even before, when it's really relevant, right? It's what we're seeing is that while people are looking for that application, right? Like trying to create that, the more important thing that we've noticed is that there is that much more important role that data needs to play. I think a lot of people know this, but I think it's probably just being underpinned with the whole hype of Gen AI and the whole technology trend. But what I'd like to share to you today is really some trends or there's 6 things, right? I want to share 6 things about how you want to get ready in the age of Gen AI. Okay. So, number 1, your proprietary data is your competitive advantage, right? So let me think about that. So within the data space, right, if you think about the way you treat data, we always talk about it as data products, right, within your company. And it's really important that what you own, that you own your data, it's trusted, you know your data, it's safe, right? And it's always relevant for your business. But that term, right, what's different now with Gen AI is, thinking about this, everyone needs to think about the data product now. Everyone wants to think about, okay, I want my company to be AI driven, and I want to make sure that I have my own data. And to bring that to relevance, right, is that you can't just use LLMs, right? I mean, you can't use LLMs by default. If you do that, then that means there's nothing differentiating with your company. Therefore, it's really important that when you use or when you pursue something on Gen AI, your proprietary data within your company, right, is very important. Meaning it personalizes, it makes it more relevant to your customer, to your consumer. It will know specific information about your company, making your products relevant, right? So that's just an example. And even if you use this internally within your systems, within your IT organizations, it's the same thing. Out of the box will not work. You need to put in your own data to make it more relevant to you. Okay. The second one I want to mention is unstructured data holds untapped potential. So there are things like, I mean, we've seen this: video, voice, text, code, right? Every organization now has built around structured data. Before, it's always structured, right? Your tabular data, analytics, dashboard, everything. It's all tabular data. That's kind of what I would say 90% of what we do. But as with the proliferation of different media, right? You have videos, voice, etc. I think Gen AI shines in that, because you're now able to take unstructured data and combine that with your structured data, right? Making it more relevant to you. So one example I would like to share here is something we did for Fortune. We announced this probably a couple of months ago, and where we custom built an LLM for the Fortune 1000 Global 500 data. So imagine Fortune, the Fortune company, they hold thousands of information around companies when they do studies. And they have 100+ thousand articles. Think of the Fortune magazines, all of those snippets of articles. They have around 20,000 video blogs, a lot of these unstructured data. And if you think about it, you can think of these as like their products, right? So, and so the challenge really was, how do we monetize this? How do they think about what can they do with Gen AI empowering that? What can they do with the information that they have? And so with that, what we did was we actually, got all of their data, put that together, analyze it. So their key thing really is, you can't ask spreadsheet a question, but you can ask an LLM one, right? So putting all of this, you're now able to create custom graphs of different scenarios that you might not be able to do before, right? You'll be able to access different, blobs of information coming from their archives. So it's really something unique from a solution point of view, but also just making sure that, when you think about Gen AI and the power and what you can do with it, don't just limit yourself with what structured data you have, but also think about that, you can use other things that you have in your company that will make it more, personalized and make the content richer. All right. So the number 3 thing that I want to say, number 3, is synthetic data is filling in your data gaps. Okay, so we talk about the data that we have, which is your structured and unstructured data. But what about the data that you don't have? Right? AI has always been very, very data hungry. And so what if you can use, Gen AI to create your own data set? That would be something that would be unique, right? So you just don't have to limit yourself with what data you have, but you can also think about what can I generate this with. Now, a good example of this would be something where, think of your digital twins, for example. So when you have your digital twin, you can think of it as another source of your synthetic data. So when you in this scenario where we have something where we've done something with a consumer goods company in their warehouse, we put a lot of information there. But with all of these simulations, what if you can get that data coming from the simulations, use that and influence the way you operate things, the way you then would influence your supply chain, put in your scheduling with your manufacturing or production. So this is just an example of a different way for you to think about where to get data. So meaning again, synthetic data is just another unique data product, right? That you can have in your arsenal when you think about, putting data together. Okay. I think I talked too fast. So let me slow down a little bit. Okay. So the fourth one is Gen AI makes it easier to contextualize and find new relationships in data, right? So for data practitioners, we know that typically data is traditionally very siloed, right? We typically want our own copy, our own access of data. So every time we want something, we want to get this. But and also, if you think about how data is organized, sometimes you can put everything on a lake, you have your data warehouse. But then when, for instance, a user wants to request for data, or someone, like, think of an example of a bank, right? Like, you have your data warehouse, there's a user who wants this particular request. When they request, you need to figure out, okay, I need a report, for instance, for all of my, clients. And then they would then figure out, okay, what kind of data are you looking for? Where do I find it in all of these things? So it's really, then you need to think about, then you need to have that person who knows, like the taxonomy of things, the architecture, who needs to know where's the right data. If it's a daily report, weekly report, where do I get that? If it's historical information, where do I get this? So a lot of this information that are probably owned by different people in the organization, right? Like, you need to understand that. And so when you create something right now, you need to talk to different people. Of course, this is where your data architecture, their data governance, right, comes into play, and it's really playing a big factor, because you need to have all of these things properly so that you can make this effective for your organization. Now, what if you think about that, and what if with generative AI, right, whether unstructured, structured, you're able to create a semantic layer that describes the context of the business, right? And then you can then put everything together. So whether it's structured, unstructured, IoT, streaming data, you can then combine everything. So one maybe other thing to think about this is, right, like, if you think about how, Gen AI is now influencing the way we, like, the context of knowledge graphs, for example, is influencing that you see in search engines. In the past, when the search engine boom, this was a long time ago, I was in my younger days. I'm sure some of you are probably have experienced this, hopefully. When you search for something, right? And you search for something, it's all just normal hyperlinks on the web, right? That's when the whole web started. But if you think about how you search now, like, for instance, I want to search our office in Accenture is in Uptown. So if I search Accenture Uptown, something that I might see here would be pictures of what the buildings might look like. It might show me the weather. It might show me, the restaurants behind it. I mean, beside the sorry. It might show me restaurants beside the area. And so that's just an example of how, data is being surfaced up, right? It's understanding your context. So imagine if you can do that to your organization with Gen AI. And one example I would say that we have done is for a company called BMW. I'm sure you know this. So we've partnered with them probably for like since a year or so ago for their Gen AI journey. And it started with, kind of using generative AI for their help desk and IT service desk, right? And eventually it became a platform. But then before I continue on what we did for them, I think it's a good thing to show that, this is an example of having that context, right? When I spoke earlier about your proprietary data, it starts with, okay, for their help desk and IT code and all that, that's their proprietary data. So we have, we were making it personalized for them to get that. Now, oops, hold on. I don't know why it's clicking. But imagine with this, right? With BMW, they have so much access to their data. So aside from doing this for their own IT help desk, what they did was, like they got access to all of the different configurations of their cars. They probably have around more than 1 million combinations of different of the body type and the color and the whatever interior that you might have. And so between, the paint, tech, interior accessories, there's more than 10 million possible configuration, right? And imagine if they're able now to understand that, so that when a customer comes into a dealer and has a problem, or can they ask about configuration, they're now able to understand everything in terms of this is what's possible that you can do with your specific car because of all of these things. In the past, someone would have to go through manuals, right? Cross-checking things. With their own platform, they're now able to do from hours to minutes because of this thing. So it's something that is, unique, that you can actually think about when you connect everything, all your data, your knowledge graphs, and all of the different, data sets that you have together. All right. Number 5, Gen AI applied to data jumpstarts data readiness. So Gen AI is becoming more accessible with each passing day. But there are risks, right? And when the fifth one, generative AI accelerates data risks. Becoming with Gen AI increases the risks of exposing your data, right? I know we've heard of the different breaches, security and governance considerations, right? It's important to think about this because there's a lot of common blind spots if you don't really think about this. As I mentioned, there's a lot of new data types that you need to think about. When you create a Gen AI application, right, it moves, the data moves from I would say different hands, right? You not just within your organization, but you go through LLM, and then you need to think about how you secure that information and everything else. And you think about quality, right? It's not a one and done thing, right? It's always going to be a continuous way for you to manage and make sure everything is accurate. So thinking about governance, security measures in scaling Gen AI and building trust, right? It's important to your brand. In Accenture, and I have seen this with other companies, we really prescribe what we call responsible AI, and this is communicated across all stakeholders. So not just the application itself, but across the stakeholders, employees, making sure that everyone is aware of what it is that we are training, what training set we're using. Are we testing everything for bias? Are we making sure that it doesn't hallucinate? All of these kinds of checks in place. How do you manage how do you make sure that and there's different aspects of how do you make sure that the AI responds properly? How do you, especially when it's public facing, right? So it's something that a lot of thought process needs to be done, so that we make sure that we manage the risks, right? And I know, right? I mean, it's like the paradox. We want to use Gen AI, but sometimes we forget that there are risks, and we've heard the news. So one thing I want to say, just make sure you check everything, right? You follow the processes, procedures, because it's so easy that we may make a mistake and all of these things. Okay, the last one, I would say, Gen AI applied to data jumpstarts data readiness. So as I mentioned earlier, I mean, Gen AI can help accelerate many aspects of the data supply chain. So when you capture the data, right, from getting structured and unstructured data to curating, meaning getting the metadata, tagging and everything, to your consumption, right? You're generating dashboards, new modes of interaction. It provides opportunities across the life cycle to improve the way you work. So for example, like Gen AI supports reverse engineering of systems. I mean, we've all seen this. I mean, I think a lot of you guys are developers. You've seen where there's a reverse engineering. It saves time for people to to create code from scratch, or it can do reverse code documentation, saves you time. But that's, again, think of it as a data that another set of your company data that you're able to use, right? So by summarizing, business requirements, generating design documents, test cases, we've seen a lot of these things, generating run books, deployment scripts. It's Gen AI is transforming the way data programs execute, right? So Gen AI can improve data productions, of course, also by helping find and contextualize the use of data. So an example I would say is something where we've done something with a global pharma, right? And they wanted to modernize some of their legacy platforms. So with the use of Gen AI, the team reverse engineered existing legacy customizations and mapped them to the business process models. So this allowed them to understand the data models, the semantics, the legacy system. So sometimes we know that the code is the golden thing, even though there's documentation. Of course, the code is still the king because that's how it works. But imagine if you have mainframe legacy code and not a lot of people actually know the product by themselves now. I mean, there's probably a handful of people in the organization that knows that. That's a real challenge. And if you can use Gen AI to actually help them document, reverse engineer, and all of these things, it actually will save you time, right? Time and money, and you'll be able to jumpstart a lot of your, I would say, modernization, transformational projects because of this. So in this example that we have, applying Gen AI to this program accelerated the production deployment by probably around 2 months, right? Saved around 45% of the data engineers' effort, 90% of the testers, and achieved 90% defect removal before UAT. So that's an example of when you apply Gen AI to your software development process, you're able to accelerate a lot of things. Now, we have mapped around 42 what we call of these Gen AI interventions. And what this means is these are the activities that you can augment, right? Gen AI to make you do faster in your data readiness journey. So imagine, as I mentioned earlier, doing a modernization approach. What data can be there? What can you do in each process, right? Where can you tap Gen AI from metadata coding to generating the code? So it covers different scenarios from requirements, design, development, testing, and of course deployment as well. So creating all of these things, right? You can incorporate Gen AI in everything, right? In everything that you do, even when you're building applications as well, especially with that space. All right, so I think to summarize, I talk about 6 things, right? So the importance of Gen AI. I mentioned earlier that when people think about Gen AI, they think about the shiny new object chatbot, could be voice powered, could be other things that we can create out of the creativity aspect. But a lot of that has been powered by data, and you cannot be effective, efficient in all of these things if you don't have the right data structure, your right data platform, and everything. And so these are the 6 things, right? To summarize, these are the 6 things I would say where Gen AI, or at least how you get your data ready, right? So to recap, think about your proprietary data, tap the unstructured data, right? Making sure that you just don't think about your structure, but also your videos, text, blogs, everything, even the voice recordings, right? Synthetic data, you can use that to fill in the gaps, to optimize things. Again, number 4, Gen AI makes it easier to contextualize, map new relationships, understanding where you can map things now, being more efficient. Number 5, of course, don't forget the risks. There are data risks, but we can manage them. We can protect ourselves. And of course, when it applied to data, Gen AI applied to data, of course, jumpstarts everything. All right. So I think with that, I will. This is the end of my presentation. Happy to connect with you over LinkedIn. I might have a lot of time left, so happy to ask questions or answer questions from the group.
Hi, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Sir Mike. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Hi, sir. It's nice to see
Hello.
you again. Thank
Hello.
you for that presentation, sir. So yes, we do have a lot of questions here for you. So but
Oh,
before anything else, I'd like to request our audience to please show our appreciation to Sir Mike this afternoon. Let's bring up those clapping and heart emojis. Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right, let's get the ball rolling for the question, sir. Our first question is, looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest challenge in data management and preparation for organizations aiming to leverage Gen AI effectively?
Looking ahead, what is the biggest challenges in data management preparation? I think, to me, the big one of the biggest challenges is really in some of the discussions I'm having. It's kind of like, well, it's 2 things. One is, I can hear myself. Should I mute the stage? Sorry, or no, no. So,
It's okay, sir.
all right. So I think the first thing is, I've noticed that in discussions, there's not a lot of, I would say, I don't want to use the word maturity, but there's not a lot of data governance practices in place with the organization. So it's kind of like we have this, they have their data somewhere, their data warehouse, and then they're trying to do all of these manage their data. And sometimes the typical thinking of, okay, when we do this we'll get there, etc. But I think what Gen AI is doing now is it's accelerating all of these programs together. So at the C level, or at least the heads of the organizations, they want outcomes. They want to use Gen AI to uplift revenues and all of these things. So I would say it's increasing the urgency to have all of these things, right? It's increasing the urgency to have all of these process, this data management preparation, the data pipelines in place, so that they are able to achieve what they need to do.
All right. Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Chris. How do we monitor and audit the use of generative AI to detect and respond to potential security breaches?
How do we monitor and audit? So there's a I think there's a few, and without going through technical solutions, right? I think there's a different ways for you to monitor and audit, meaning, if you create an application of Gen AI, you can use your logs and everything to monitor, and depending on the results as well, you can use whether or not which sources they are to protect you, to understand where your sources are. Now, from a I guess I'm not sure about the potential security breaches, but I think for me, if I understand this correctly, um, there's also different tools out there,
Mhm.
using generative AI to, like, if it's about like I guess data security, I don't know, like protection and everything, like security tools that detect things. I think there's already a lot of the tools that are powered with Gen AI for all of these things. So I don't know if that's the question or something else, but hopefully I answered that.
So, Chris, hopefully that answers your question. Let me know in the comment under your question if that's good enough. Okay. Our next question is actually from Maron. From a large enterprise standpoint, where various content comes from different internal teams, what recommendations do you have to achieve transparency, data lineage, and cataloging as we move towards data preparedness?
Well, hold on, let me just read through this.
Yeah. Medyo ano
From
siya,
different teams, what do they
maraming
have to-
sub-question inside the question.
Yeah. What data about data? Okay, assume towards data preparedness. What's the from? What recommendations do you have? Okay. So for what recommendations do you have to achieve data transparency? Okay. Um, I would say in the context of this, I think you need to make sure that you're I would say you're you have to have a strong data management governance process, number one. Number two is also making sure that, especially maybe for me in the context of when you create or at least work with Gen AI, it's a combination of understanding where how you create your vector databases, where you get your source information. You can use different contexts, right? How to access to your data. But from a transparency, for example, when you have this in the context of Gen AI, then in some results I've seen that you put the source. So for instance, when you respond to something, you can then insert, okay, this is coming from this particular source. This is where I got this information. That way you can then there's a way for you to fact check that source of the data that you are using. All right.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sir Mike. Our next question comes from Armando Durante. What types of data are most effective for training generative AI models, and how do they influence model performance? And how can data scientists assess and evaluate the quality and relevance of data sets used for generative AI training?
Wow. Haba nila. All right. So I know training AI models, right, is not an easy job. It's also an expensive activity.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of the models publicly have been trained on all of these different data, right? But I think what I would say is um, the most effective, I would say, the way for you to either train um, your own or at least your own model or fine tune or whatever we call it, train or something, is to use your own data to figure out what it is that you want to accomplish, right? What is the goal? And of course, you need to then be more specific to what it is. Sometimes, like having a general, I would say a bigger general model doesn't really work. So there are instances where you might use a different, smaller models that you might just need for what your context is. So that's also something to consider.
Okay, thank you, sir. Armando, I hope that's good enough for you. Okay, next, we have from Chris again. How do we address potential biases in AI generated data that could impact security and privacy?
How do we address? Um, I think this comes with making sure that the training data we have is, I would say, is something that is we know where the data is coming from and it's not biased towards something through either a gender
Mhm.
or a country or whatever, right? And just being upfront, there's not much information on some countries or on some, for example, in the Philippines, I would say there's not much information maybe for some of the regions and whatever we have. Majority of the information could be right from the central bigger cities. So that could be something you need to think about, right? How do you then um, put that a system that doesn't have more bias towards some of the because data is there. Um, so that's an example. I think to address, I think bias, just I would say think about have that typically organizations or at least your companies there's some sort of strategy around fairness, equality, governance, are what you need to think about AI for good and all of that. So just make sure that you go through that and review that your data is always going to be aligned with it. And sometimes if it's lacking that data, right, just ask the questions around, is it the right thing? Do you have everything? Is it fair and all that, right? So just think about all these things.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Mike. Our next question from Isa Pearl. What strategies can we use to harmonize data from different systems and formats to ensure consistency and accuracy?
Harmonize data from different systems and formats. I think to me this is where the at having that semantic layer metadata around what are these things, what are the different
Mhm.
data entities are for is important. For example, you might have your videos and how can you then tag, how do you get that information across? I don't think it's about harmonizing, meaning it's the same common theme. I think there's different ways of technology that can access different formats now. So I think it's really making sure that how do you then kind of make make logical sense of all of your data, right? Because you may have your videos here, your articles here. Then how do you correlate everything? I think that's where it comes into.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you also, Isa, for that question. Our next question from Diane. How do you see the role of data risk management evolving in the future of the generative AI development?
All of data risk. Um, it is important. Um, I think data management, data governance is going to change or is probably changing now. As I
Mm,
mentioned earlier, probably data management before was really more about structured data. Now you need to think about, well, unstructured, what do you do, right? Um, and again, with that management, you need to make sure that um, you manage towards the risks. You make sure that that responsible AI framework, that I'm sure that you may call it whatever you want, right? But we call it responsible AI framework. It has to be embedded, right? As you develop, test your system. So it's important really that you have this management process or risk management process to make sure that you have the right set of data that you need, right, as you move along.
okay, thank you
It's
again,
good.
sir.
These questions are good because a lot of, I think, when we did a lot of our, for example, of our work on Gen AI, right, as POCs and everything, but then as we continued, when you progress from a POC thing to
Mm.
productionizing it, I think you need to think about a lot of these things. So it now comes into play. It's more important.
Yeah, I think it also comes from the roles that our participants are actually doing in their own respective
Yeah.
organizations. Yeah, so our next question from Christian, can an organization monitor or limit the data that employees use in generative AI tools?
And an organization monitor and limit the data that employees use in Gen AI tools. Yes, they can. Yes, they can monitor. Yes, they can limit, but it also depends on the the employee. So a
Yeah.
lot of it is, I mean, joke kidding aside, right? Like I think it's a combination of there is organization principles of limiting things, but as we espouse the culture of innovation, experimenting, doing something, I think we also need to just, empower the employees to be also responsible, but of course educate them, right? That you can't just upload something proprietary somewhere, right? It's the same thing in the past where you can't upload a sensitive document to the web somewhere. So it's probably gonna. I would say it's the same principles that we need to think about and think about it even more.
Okay. Thank you, sir, and thank you also, Christian, for that question. Our next question is what specific data privacy and security concerns should we be aware of when using enterprise data for Gen AI? How can we mitigate risks and protect sensitive information?
Um, so there's several ways from a privacy security concern. There's ways for you to, from a configuration point of view, that it should not, they should not get the data, put it out there from a model point of view. But also there's several techniques, right? Like you have to mask your data or don't put sensitive information there, or if it's for, one thing also to think about is don't kind of mix them together. So if there's something, a unique use case for all the sensitive information, don't kind of interchange it with the rest, um, of the kind of, say, the open, information, the less confidential documents, right?
All right. Thank you again, sir. And thank you again, Isa, for that question. Our next question is how can users protect themselves if Gen AI systems are attacked? From Colleen Alejandrino.
How can users protect its Gen AI system? I'm thinking about if this is related to like deep fakes or not, but I
Yeah.
think it's about protecting if Gen AI systems. I mean, I would say from a system point of view,
Mhm.
the way we need to think about security for our usual applications and all that, right? The chatbots and everything is, I think it should still apply when we create some of these things. And the other thing to think about is, of course, when there are, so just applying that same, I would say, principles, um, around this, and of course being aware as well and being responsible, um, users, right? So I think again, it's combining all your, I'd say, security guidelines, for applications.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Colleen. Our next question is we often hear about the importance of high quality data for Gen AI. What are some of the emerging data essentials specific to Gen AI that go beyond traditional data quality metrics?
Often your importance of high quality data. What's some emerging data essentials that go beyond traditional data? I'm trying to figure out what he or she's referring to.
Can the participant who asked this question comment in below the question to clarify regarding the question? Because sir, this was sent anonymously, so we can't really call out the the participant who asked this.
Like maybe we can.
Um,
I'm not. We often hear importance of high quality. Maybe we can skip for now. I'm
yeah,
not
so
sure if
we'll
it's
just
about
go
the
back.
type of
Yeah,
data. Yeah.
we'll go back to that. Hopefully the participant can clarify further in the Q&A. Our next question is how can businesses balance the need for diverse data sets with the risk of introducing noise or irrelevant information into generative AI models?
Balance the need for diverse with the risk of increased noise or alarm. Okay, so I think again goes back to, it also goes back to how thorough the data sets you have, because you're right, more data set may not necessarily be good, but lesser can also be not good. So I think it's just having that right balance. I think there's also concepts of how accurate do you need to go. um, a lot of times it really also depends on what you're trying to achieve. I think we're right now at the stage where we want, I think we're probably thinking, okay, do I really want 100, I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but a lot of the, I would say the common, I would say 80-90% of the use cases really augmenting the users with Gen AI, so they're more effective with their jobs. Like for instance, a high IT help desk, or a developer. I'm not saying that the code is 100% accurate, but of course you need to think about, okay, now I have, like, if it's a service, it's an IT help desk ticket or whatever ticket that you're doing, a customer service, right? Gen AI will say this is probably what you want to, how you want to answer this. I mean, in my mind, think of it as a guide, as a starting point, which will help you do your job better, faster. So, to your point, I think depending on the use case, you need to balance that information and the data set that you have to train and to put in your models or in your solutions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Sir Mike. Our next question, since we still have a lot of time, is there any data governance model that you can recommend to our audience from
Data
Jervin?
gov- Is this is he asking for a tool or something? I think it's I cannot
Yeah,
comment on the
I think
specific product
model.
unless they are a sponsor of PSIA and SoftCon. Just joking.
Sir, you can promote whatever you have in the
No,
future
just
if you
joking.
want.
No, it's
So, okay, so we can proceed to the next question instead. Okay, so our next question is, I think Roy is asking if Gen AI is safe to use and has passed all risk tests like data leaks and deepfakes.
safety is and pass all risks like data leaks and I mean, I think if this I mean this whole there's always going to be before Gen AI, the data leaks has always been there. It's a question of the security, right?
Mhm.
I think Gen AI has accelerated the like the creation of the deep fakes and all of these things. And I think recently as Accenture, we published something around the point of view on how we want to make sure that how do you protect yourself, what you need to think about. So there's always going to be risks, and as I mentioned, responsible AI by design. But
Mhm.
of course, there will be always things out there that will kind of challenge, I would say, the systems in place, right? So just make sure that you have the right security in place and all that for all of these things. It and so it's a lot of education for not just for the, I would say, the IT, the technology team, but also everyone, right, from the business to the employees. I think everyone
Yeah.
needs to understand, be aware of all of these things, so that they're
Yeah.
educated and well informed enough for these things.
Yes. I agree, sir. Thank you, sir, and thank you, Roy, for that question. Our next question is how do we protect sensitive information from being inadvertently generated or exposed by AI outputs? Another question from Chris.
Yeah. Um, so it depends on what you're trying to do, right? A lot of like when we build some of the Gen AI systems, sometimes it's the output is also meant for um, the the enterprise itself. So having that, it's okay. Now, protecting information and sensitive, it's again, it's that access to the data. Where how did you enable that access to that? So a lot of it is a combination of what data are you allowing access or documents that you're putting in there so that it can be shared by that system or the application that you're building.
Okay, thank you, sir. And thank you again, Chris, for that question. I think you already have three questions answered by Sir Mike already.
May
Our
price na
next
ata siya eh.
Sir, meron actually, merong price
May
yung
price ba
leaderboard.
for more
Yeah,
questions?
the more you
Kaya
ask
pala eh.
kasi the more you ask, the more points you accumulate for the leaderboard. So our next question comes from Jeffrey Samson. For large internal data sets, can you give us an idea what would be the infra and resource requirements for training Gen AI?
Um, it it I know you won't like the answer. I think it really depends on how big we're talking about. Again, and are you really just training? Or are you just doing um, like RAG to get connected the information? Of course you need to still create your vector databases and all that. So it also depends on when you say by large data set in the infra. And we do have kind of like tools in place to for like token counts and to estimate the cost. But it's probably too detailed to discuss here. But happy to discuss with you offline.
Yeah, further. Yeah, offline. So, Sir Jeffrey, I think you can reach Sir Mike after the session pa, and discuss this further. Okay, our next question is how can companies leverage generative AI with legacy data systems, and what challenges do enterprises face when trying to connect outdated infrastructure to modern AI solutions?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of goes back to me. This is not a Gen AI, I would say, solution that will help this. It's a combination probably of a few things. Meaning, when you have your legacy data, um, a lot of times the access is limited, right? You don't get real time information. You cannot update it immediately. It runs with batch. I assume that's what we're talking about when we say legacy data systems.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my response to this is you need to think about, again, depending on your industry, right, what it is that you want to achieve in your enterprise. So there's solutions where, or architecture principles in place where you can get
Mm-hmm.
data from your legacy, put it somewhere in a data lake, a warehouse, whatever we call it. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, put your other information there. Do majority of what needs to happen in this space, because that's where Gen AI will. That's what you can use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this is having that architecture, the data platform set up properly, so you can leverage that data that you have from your
Mm-hmm.
legacy, from your other sources for Gen AI.
Okay. Thank you. I hope Sir Kim John that answers your question. No, sir, let me just circle back to that question from Jerwin Carlos
Yeah,
when he asked that is there any data governance model you can recommend? He actually clarified during the in the Q&A tab. He mentioned that this is in
principle,
principle. Yeah, so not necessarily the
a governance
product.
principle. I think for me it's you need to think about holistically, like what it is. Number one, you need to know what kind of AI Gen AI solution that you're trying to do. You're trying to build, you're trying to adopt. Um, Depending on that, you need to think about where your sources are, what kinds of data set you will use. I think that will be helpful in terms of how you will apply that principle of data governance. An example, I think we did in Accenture, we did a lot of Gen AI solutions for our different entities. So, example, marketing, our marketing team um, are using Gen AI for both internal communications and
And
also like
external.
external. And because of that, right, like what they've noticed is the voice outside is different than inside, right, the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the marketing team now they realize, okay, now we need to, they call themselves, they need to have this they need to know how to train, right, the domain training of how do they train the model, or at least the tool in place for this kind of voice, right, how do you prompt it properly, etc. So that also evolves kind of the way their jobs are, how they think about how to create these things. So it's a combination of that plus also the people kind of doing this whole thing. I mean, people executing the jobs themselves. So that's why it's important to think about that from a Gen AI point of view. It's not just the technology that we're talking about, like making sure that both users and the end customers, all that, are all educated with what's happening here.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for explaining that further for Jerwin. No. Our next question. I think we still have time for final two questions. Do we have a global standard that guide individuals or companies when it comes to using AI and ethics around it?
Um, I don't think there is a global standard, if I'm not mistaken. Meaning, but I
Not
know
yet
that, for
existing.
example, yeah, not yet, but I think, for example, UN is probably doing something from a SDG
Mm.
point of view. Like this, just AI for good in general, um, but there are countries adopting, right, having specific laws. For example, in the UK, you cannot use it for certain. You cannot use Gen AI replicates for a particular use case, like
Mm.
for I mean, you can read through it. So it's a combination of these things that now um, some countries are doing this. So for example, I mean, you think about the EU, right? The data privacy. It's, of course, it starts from them, a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And as you see that, a lot of the other companies are also starting to have their own, right? Like I'm sure India is doing something, like Dubai and the other UAE are doing something also. Um, and you can think about the whole context of sovereign AI where we should have our own, like maybe for
Yeah.
the Philippines, we have our own thing, right? Versus other countries. So that will, I'm sure that is part of the next things that will happen and will be evolving in this space.
Yeah, so parang sundutan ko na lang din, sir, since you mentioned also that there's particular AI regulations already in place for different places around the world. Personal question na to actually. Do you have any idea if meron, I mean, if meron na ba brewing or alam mo yun, yung parang iniisip na mechanisms in place here sa Philippines regulating the use of or putting in place the
I'm
ethical standard here in the Philippines for using AI.
I think in some of the like the what I'm reading and also like in some of the forums in the IT business, right? I know
Mm-hmm.
there are activities already with with some of the government arms like the ICT and other things that there's some discussion with the with different again business organizations. I think there's discussions around that. I just can't comment on what it is they're
Yeah.
doing.
Kasi on the record tayo nga eh. Pwede off the record. Pag-usapan natin, sir. So, I think just to wrap the question and answer part of this session, sir, no, one final question. So, the question goes, do you think the direction of Gen AI, with all its innovations and improvements, is heading towards the right direction?
Ay, ang ganda ng question na to. Wait lang. Kailangan
Yeah.
kong i-internalize ko na bago ko sagutin.
Internalize mo, sir. Bigyan kita ng time to think about it.
No, I think it so to me, right, it is heading in the right direction. So it's I mean
Mm-hmm.
because of a couple of things. I think one, it's exciting that we're seeing a lot of things that are kind of challenging the norm. So I mean, I just read an article that Adobe released their new thing for video. So like from Adobe Premiere, you can prompt something and it can generate a video clip of
Mm-hmm.
something, right? I mean, kind of similar to what we've seen before. So at some point, the question here is what's real, what's not, what's generated
Mm-hmm.
automatically. Does it, what about the creativity aspect, right? So there, on the one side, to me, I mean, it's a, I think it's a space where it's challenging a lot of kind of the norms that we have that maybe we know that, okay, I have to create this, I own this. But the question is, well, like on a personal note, for instance, a long time ago, I was into photography, and for those who understand this and who can relate to it, there were comments at that time when you take a picture, you edit it, and then of course right now this the simple way for the younger folks now is to say you put filters, right? It's the easy
Yes.
way now. In the past, you edit, you put all of these things, and of course there would be comments when people say, "Oh, this is a purist. This is just he took it nice right out of the camera," versus people kind of editing. So there's always going to be now
Yeah.
that was a challenge back then. Now it's probably going to be the same thing where, well, is it generated, etc. Of course, you need to make sure
Yeah.
that to me, it's like declare that it's generated, right? So I think on that side, it's exciting from a creativity personal point of view. The second, I think, is it will challenge the way we interact with systems. How comfortable
Mm-hmm.
are we that when we have a complaint, I have a complaint with a particular whatever, maybe customer service from an online thing. Am I comfortable enough that it's just chat answering me and how right? Like I still have this notion that I want someone to talk to, but I know that there's a different generation that are so comfortable with talking online. Right? And I think the number three aspect for me, why it's for me it's exciting, is there are a lot of use cases I think that businesses, companies can adopt. And it's not just about the productivity. I think that is the first thing, but I think at some point this will open up, new revenue opportunities, new areas for them to grow into. So a lot of startups, for example, are now AI companies, right? So I think that it's heading in the right direction. As always, everyone is, I would say there's always going to be that question, hey, is this going to be the right thing? But I think it typically comes with every disruptive technology that there's always that
Yeah.
notion of good or bad. But as long as we adopt it and know what it's good for, I think that will always help us.
Yes, sir. Definitely, I agree with that, sir. And I think personally, I would be personally comfortable to chat with an automated chatbot instead of a person para hindi ko ma-hurt yung feelings niya pag kung sakaling nagagalit na ako
Ginagalit
sa
ka.
sa mga reklamo ko.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, thank you so much, Sir Mike,
Thank
for
you.
joining us this afternoon. We are so glad that you shared this presentation and took the time to answer the questions of our participants this afternoon. Once again, guys, let's shower Sir Mike with a round of applause and hearts, please. Okay. So just in case you still have questions or you have further clarifications on what Sir Mike presented or answered during the Q&A, you can reach him offline after the session. Okay. And so, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for this session. If you enjoyed this particular session, feel free to rate this session and the speaker in our feedback form, which is posted in the chat box. Okay. Again, let's thank Sir Mike. And again, also, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me in this session. Please now exit this session and join the next session. Bye. See you later.